Board games is what I'm talking about. Board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am sorry about deconstruction. I hope that it's not making it too awkward to listen. Anyway, today we've got another guest, Adam Porter. I'm not saying Adam's the best, but you know what I am saying is that Adam's exceptionally excellent because, to define one individual as the best is definitely what I meant. But, we can potentially, in a sense, be all the best together, and we can make games or dentistry or be acting or whatever. Board games, dentistry and acting and stuff, it's what we're talking about. Having a chat and getting to know Adam Porter, and I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is, wherever you are. This is 10 a.m. UK time, another episode of Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. And today I have a delightful guest. I am excited to have you with us, Adam Porter. Thank you for joining.
Hi, I'm very happy to be here.
And in your little bio that, obviously, I've watched a few of your videos. We've interacted in the past at, I think you came to, was it the first or the second BG DevCon? And we had a bit of
a couple of them, yeah.
Chats, and it's also just online. I think we have been certainly interested in what you're up to. Although I've not played all your games, and I assume there's a sense of mutuality there. And thank you very much for including me in one of your recent videos. I was again incredibly honored. But that's not the reason I'm having you here. Just to be clear, you coming here is not dependent on you talking about my stuff. I would have you over here regardless, even if you had not wished me all the best for 2022 or whatever. But Adam, you are making games, you're doing dentistry. I was really interested. I had not realized that you'd had a wee battle with cancer a while back, and obviously are here, but you must have had an excruciating year. But then it sounds like that was the real thing that forced you to say, no, I'm not devoting my life to something that I'm not super passionate about. I'm going to pursue acting. I'm going to pursue the theatre. And then later on, when you didn't have time for that, you followed board games. So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was quite a long time ago now. So we're talking, I think, 2008. I had cancer. I had testicular cancer and had chemotherapy and all those sort of things for 6 months or so. It was a very weird 6 months out of my life. But I think I'd already kind of made the decision that I was already qualified as a dentist. I qualified as a dentist in 2002. So I'd been working as a dentist for a while. I think I'd already made the decision that I wanted to do more than just 9 to 5 in a regular job. I felt more creative than that, or more, I don't know. I felt like I wanted to do more, and I wanted to act. So that's I think it just cemented being ill, and I think it just cemented. Do you know what I want to?
Without being too grim, it sounds like it was a reminder of your own mortality. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so. Although it's quite a depressing start to a conversation, isn't it? I'd lost a couple of friends before that to cancer, and so I think I'd already had that realization, and then this was kind of this was my turn, and thankfully testicular cancer was really, really survivable cancer, and so I never really feared for my life or anything like that. But I did just think, you know what, I didn't know, life's too short, so let's do things I enjoy as much as possible, and so yeah, I've always since then done a little bit of one thing, a little bit of another thing, and kind of had a very varied life since then.
Yeah, people talk about being a jack of all trades, master of none, as if that's a terrible thing. But I mean, myself, I'm obviously doing multiple things within the creation of a board game: illustration, writing, design, and development. And then you've got to start off the marketing, which is at least 1/3. And then you've got The logistics is the part that I'm really hoping to sign off to other people. But in a similar sense, as it sounds like you really focus on bringing theatre skills into your dental training, and you focus on bringing everything together, and your YouTube videos, you're doing design, but then that feeds into it. You started off with reviews, but now you're pushing forward. Pushing forward sounds a bit aggressive, but you're sharing your own insights. And yeah, hello, Nicholas. It is lovely to see you, who mirrors what I've been saying. Nicholas says, hi Bez, hi Adam, thank you for your videos. They are incredibly helpful and have been great companions in my design journey. Your latest series has been quite interesting.
Thank you.
And let's, after, as you said, a slightly depressing start, let's go and talk about some recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So Adam, would you like to share a couple of things that you've achieved that you're proud of in the past week? What's a typical day like for you? Have you eaten a nice meal? Have you played any good games?
Oh, the last week. What's a highlight in the last week? I could probably do the last couple of weeks.
Go for
the last
that.
week's been quite full on. The last couple of weeks, I've been running this YouTube series, which is my top 100 board game mechanisms. I thought I would shake up a little bit. Last year I did my top 100 board games, which of course every YouTube channel does. So this year I thought, well, I can't just repeat that because I haven't played that many games over the last year. So and it would all be the same. So I did my top 100 board game mechanisms, and so those are coming out every couple of days. And it is a highlight to when those videos are posted. I really love getting comments from people, and particularly the comments. The comments are more important to me than the views, the subscribers, or anything like that. It's that feeling of interacting and people telling me where it's helped them, or even people telling me where they don't like the videos or things that are wrong with them, and so there's things that I can try and improve on and stuff like that. So those videos are a highlight over the last couple of weeks.
I totally get that about comments. I mean, on Board Game Geek, I love it. Sure, it's nice if someone gives one of my games a really high rating. That's lovely. But when someone even if someone rates it one step lower, but then says, oh, we had a lot of fun playing this, that's so much more meaningful. Or if I see a picture like on Instagram that someone's saying, oh, we're starting to color in these wee whimsical creatures and I think it's the creative person's need to get something out into the world. I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yeah, I think so. I think, it is that. Yeah, you're right. It's that feeling of being creative and other people being creative around you, and everybody sparking off each other really and inspiring each other. That's what's quite nice about the game design sort of community. I used to be an actor, and it was very different as an actor. Everybody wasn't always supportive. You were competing with each other really in the same way we're all competing with each other as game designers, but it doesn't feel like it. It doesn't feel like we're in any way in competition. We're all, as I say, we're all sparking off each other, all helping each other along. As an actor, it wasn't like that. It was all very secretive. No, don't tell anybody about your audition. You don't want anyone else to know about it.
Because of the number of hobbyist designers, because it maybe makes it a lot less cutthroat. Whereas, I mean, in the toy industry, I think there it can be a lot more cutthroat when you actually get into mass market stuff.
Yeah, perhaps.
But yes, hello Yoda, it is lovely to see you, and we call Dutch Yoda, or Nederlander Yoda as I like to say, because we've established in the past that Dutch is a ridiculous English word. And Stream Elements the Robots is reminding me to have a quick stretch, even though we've just started. Always good to make sure.
An early stretch.
But I want to have a reintroduction of the questionably quick questions. So first, Adam in sales, what is your tip for pitching a game?
My tip for Adam in sales, yeah, that's very good. My tip for pitching a game, I think you're not pitching. My number one tip is you're not pitching the game, you're pitching yourself, really. I think there's much more to gain from those pitches by building relationships than there are by pitching your game. So don't think so much about your game. Think much more about how you're coming across, and make sure you're listening. I think that those are the number one things. I meet the same people year after year in Essenspiel. They seem to be always happy to meet with me. And often I meet with them and show them the games, and they're not interested in the games, really. It's just that they'll meet me and look at anything that I show them, because we've had pleasant pitch meetings in the past, and they know that even if something isn't going to be suitable for them, it's going to be of at least a decent quality, and I'm going to be hopefully fairly easy to work with. So I would focus on the relationship. I'd focus on meeting the person, showing an interest in them, showing an interest in their company. And your game is something else. Hopefully you'll get to show them lots of games over time.
Yeah, that makes sense. Listening to what their needs are, and maybe next year you'll have a better fit for them, because you might. I think I saw Yellow, and then they told me, "Oh, have you considered?" I showed them something that I had. This was just before everything went to rock bottom because of the pandemic, and some really great advice. The game that I showed was a terrible game for them, but they said, "Oh, this is interesting, but have you considered Loki?" And all we need really is to make something that it can have a bit more of a theme in it. Like if you could have some interesting fantastical creatures. That was basically what they told me, which, that wasn't the spark of wee whimsical creatures, but Cheap Games says, if you turned around and had to pick one game from the top shelf to throw out, which one would it be? Oh, this is harsh. I don't know if you want to pick on one of your games, but
it's got to be from the top shelf.
Yes.
Yeah. I would get rid of. I don't have to throw it out, do I? I can give it to somebody else. It would be a shame to throw it out.
I assume that you can give it to someone else, but it has to be someone outside of your gaming group, let's say.
All right.
So, well, you can't just say, "Oh, I'll give it to my wife and we live in the same house." That's obviously cheating. Or
no. I can pick one that I don't like very much. I would get rid of this one, Kakerlaken Sushi. I would get rid of. I really, really like Dry Magia Spieler games. I really like the art style. I really like the gameplay. But this one, I was disappointed because it's in a bigger box than all the others. It doesn't match up. It doesn't line up with the others. The gameplay is no bigger really, and it's got this. So
you aren't just holding it very close to the camera. It's a much bigger box.
It's bigger. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. Like that, but and the only reason it's bigger is because it's got this squeaker in it that you have to grab, this cockroach squeaker, and it doesn't squeak. Well, it does, but you've really got to force it, and you're supposed to grab this and squeak it. The game is okay, it's pretty good, but it just irritates me.
Having that one box being a bit bigger is enough of an irritant that you're just like, it's a fine game, but.
It's not about the space or anything like that. It's about the fact that it doesn't match the others in the series. And I collect that series of games, and I like most of them a lot. But to have one that's the wrong size, it's weird.
Yeah, I can understand that. I would like to ask you, Adam in Scales, have you ever done any music? What instruments do you play, if any?
No, I've when I've been on stage and I've had to sing, but I've had to, in one play I had to play the ukulele, but I only had to learn one song.
Still, that feels like a bit of an achievement, playing the ukulele. Now, Adam fails. What is there a mistake that you've made do you have a regret that you can share with us, or any mistake that you would caution other people away from?
Any mistakes?
And good morning to Rory. It is lovely to see you. And congratulations on Voyages.
Hello. Yes, congratulations on Voyages. Voyages is fantastic. Well done. Something that I failed on. You know, it's terrible. I can't think of an immediate answer. I obviously have failed on all sorts of things constantly and frequently, probably every single day, fail on things. But I can't think of one glaring sort of example. If I had to pick out of my games, where I would say there's one game that stands out among my games that I think, could have done that better, or I could have dealt with that better, or production could have been better, or something like that, it would be Throne. My game Throne is somewhere behind me here. Throne. Now, I really like Throne, really enjoy it, really enjoy playing it. But I think now, with a more commercial hat on, I tend to look at the board game industry much more and think about, you know, the marketability of things and the audience for things. I put much more emphasis on that now than I do on just creating something that I enjoy.
Are you saying that the kind of branding, like the style of illustration and the game design, was a mismatch? Or are you saying within the game design itself, you were casting too wide a net, maybe not thinking about your end audience quite enough?
But I'm saying both, really. I didn't think about my end audience at all. I thought about, this is a game that I would want to play. This is an experiment that it was essentially Throne is a game where you play a trick-taking game, but you use dice instead of cards. And so that was the core concept. It's a really good hook for a game, and I just wanted to make it work. I just thought, right, how does that work? How does a trick-taking game work if it has dice instead of cards? And at no point, I can honestly say, at no point in the entire process did I think, would anybody actually be interested in that or want to play it? And as it turned out, there are some people who are interested and want to play it and enjoy it, but it's not a very big number of people. And the people who don't really want to play those sort of games and then happen upon it aren't that impressed by it. And so, you know, and it doesn't help that I think there is a mismatch, as you say, with the production of it. It's a very silly game. And yet it's got a very it's got generic fantasy, quite a serious sort of art style, which doesn't quite necessarily match. I think it could look sillier, and that might put some of those people off who play it and then are disappointed. So it certainly was, a commercial failure. In terms of, I mean, I learned from it, so it can't be an all-out failure. And as I say, I love the game.
Embodying the spirits of Chumbawamba, you get knocked down, but you get up again. You learn these lessons, and you move forwards. Yeah. Now, when you're acting in the theatre, what is your favourite production, your favourite story, your favourite tale that you have ever done?
Good. I wonder how many of these you can do. I bet you've got plenty of these up your sleeve, Bez. Adam in Tales. My favorite story. I played Caliban once in The Tempest. That's my favorite character I ever played. Really enjoyed playing Caliban in The Tempest. So Caliban's a monster, and he's sort of the bad guy, but you also feel for him and you understand he's been kind of enslaved and mistreated. It's a very Gollum-like. In fact, there's a sense that Gollum may have been based on Caliban. So that was a really, really interesting character to play. And a good story, The Tempest.
Yes, I have. And so that's the Shakespearean play.
It's Shakespeare. Yeah, it's one of Shakespeare's last plays, and it's also his shortest play. I think it's his shortest, which is good because Shakespeare plays can go on a bit. And I love Shakespeare, but I do like something in a digestible chunk, you know. And The Tempest is a really good one for that.
I have to admit, I'm familiar with a few of them, but not that one. I will maybe look up the Cliff's Notes after this, check out a bit about Caliban. I might even be inspired to see a performance of it one day.
You should.
I want to ask you, have you ever been on a boat? Do you enjoy being on boats?
I have been on boats. I actually went on a cruise it was way before the pandemic. I don't know, a few years ago, maybe 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, something like that. I went on a cruise, and I'd always sworn I had no interest in cruises. I was young and thought cruises were something for much older people than me, but my parents kept on at me. You will come on a cruise with us one day, won't you, Adam? You will come on a cruise with us. So I did, and it was very pleasant. And I'd happily go again.
Well, I mean, I hear that are incredibly problematic from an environmental point of view, hauling this big thing around. But I mean, it sounds good, at least, that you made your parents' long wish come true. I would like to ask you about your successes, your triumphs. What is the one thing that you are most proud of right now?
Oh, the one thing I'm most proud of. I think I get a lot of, I do get a lot of pride from the game design stuff. I do. I enjoy in terms of game design. It's when I get most pride when I think I like it when friends are able to play these games. I like it when there's somebody who I used to know, maybe I haven't spoken to for 15, 20 years, and then they pop up on Facebook holding a copy of my game saying, I got your game, Adam, and I've played it with my kids and I really enjoyed it. I find that more satisfying than I do Board Game Geek comments and things like that, really. Or if my mum says, oh, my friend picked up a copy of your game for Christmas. I've never met my mum's friend, but she picked up a copy of my game to play with her family at Christmas or something like that. I always find that really satisfying because it feels like it's, I don't know. They're really connecting with people outside of the gaming sphere. They're connecting with people who aren't immersed in board games. So I love that within the board game world. Within dentistry, I think is where I'm getting most of my sort of moments of real sort of pride, I suppose. I'm the chairman of a local dental committee, which means that I kind of the committee sort of is the voice for dental practices around the south of Wales, and so we kind of support the dentists and so it means that I get into lots of discussions with Wales government and things like this about how dentistry should happen and back and forth. So I get little minor successes there where we're not quite happy as a group of dentists about the way we've been sort of asked to work or something like that. And so you get your little moments of when you're objecting to something constructively and then something changes positively. So those moments are nice.
Does that mean that you're no longer really practicing dentistry? You're spending most of your time working on this body to help educate and train? And
no, I do both. I work in practice about 1.5 to 2 days a week. And then I split the rest of my time between teaching, running training schemes, and also chairing this committee. Yeah.
And I have to admit, one thing that I would urge you to be proud of is the fact that within board games, at least, because I don't know about your acting career, but
there's not much to be proud of in my acting career, Bez.
I was going to say that you've had so many cool things published that, everything that you've done, whether it's regardless of the commercial success, I look at it and I think that's just a really cool idea, and there's lots of really interesting stuff going on here. And you managed to do it all whilst essentially working a full-time job, which to me, that's just incredible. Because sure, I mean, in a bind, I got to the Kickstarter point, so in theory, if I'd pitched it rather than self-published it, I could have carried on working full-time as well. And I guess it's slightly different but for sure, it requires a real discipline to be doing both things. And so for the amount of output that you continue to have, I think that's incredibly admirable.
Well, thank you. I think working on such simple games, most of my games are really pretty simple, does mean that sometimes games never finished, are they? But sometimes they're publishable relatively quickly. I mentioned just very briefly earlier that I've designed a game in the last few weeks, and it didn't take long to get to the point. When I say it didn't take long, it took hours and hours and hours, but it didn't take months and months and months to get to the point where I felt, you know what, this is actually at a point where I think I'm ready to kind of start showing it to
Mm-mm.
publishers. And so it is something that I can manage to do in my spare time. If I was trying to go down the Kickstarter route and start to actually try to produce these games myself, there's no way I don't think I would have the time to do that. But showing it to a publisher, you know, when I go to Essenspiel, I'll probably have 30 meetings over a 4-day period. That's it for the year then. That's all my pitches done, you know, and so yeah, manageable chunks really.
I think also the discipline of setting up those meetings, getting into that routine, and obviously the past, 2020, especially with online, and then 2021, I think you didn't go because, or I can't remember if you went or not. I think you mentioned something about.
I haven't been since 2019. No, I didn't go. Obviously, 2020 it didn't happen. In 2021, I couldn't go. I was the dentistry is too hard right now to take the time out, unfortunately.
But anyway, let's talk about your garden. Do you have a garden? Are you proud of it? Do you have any snails?
We don't have many snails. I had a lot of snails in my previous garden. We do have a garden. And my wife is extremely proud of our garden. She does lots of gardening and wants to grow lots of vegetables and plants. But we've also got a very young dog, and the dog destroys anything that my wife tries to do. So the garden is pretty much wrecked. You know, I had to get the dog out of the planters
and
this morning.
2 other dogs as well.
We've got 3 dogs, but one is only 1 year old, and is a spaniel, a Sprocker spaniel, and she's nuts. So yeah, she wrecks the garden. So yeah, I'm not particularly proud of the garden, but yeah, I don't know. We're going to do some work on it this year, maybe.
Have you ever had a brush-in with the law?
No,
Hey.
I haven't. No. I ran through a cornfield once.
Well, a cornfield that you weren't meant to.
Yeah, no, sorry, it's a Theresa May joke. I've never done anything. I've never done anything more naughty than that.
So what is your favorite type of place to go if you go hiking, or if you go into a valley, or into misty area? What's your favorite type of place to be in when you're reacquainting yourself with nature?
I would like to reacquaint myself with nature more, really. I walk the dogs, but that's relatively brief because it's, fitted into my daily routine. So it's round the block and in familiar fields and parks and things like that. I used to go up a big hill called Kumkan near Newport. I used to do that pretty frequently. It's not a massive walk or anything like that, but it got your calf muscles aching a little bit, and going through the woods. That was a nice walk. I'm not a huge hiker, not really. Yeah, that's about it for Adam on Dales.
Well, I mean, I think that it sounds like you have done a wee bit of hiking. You have followed a few trails, and I think that it's fair to say in Wales, in Cardiff, even though it's a big city, there's more going on in terms of walking into nature than there would be here, where sure you can go into a park, but it's relatively manicured compared to what you might see within half an hour of yourself.
Yeah, that's true. It's not manicured in Cardiff.
If we were going to the pub, what would you like me to buy you?
It wouldn't be an ale. It wouldn't be an ale. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, I am alcohol intolerant and gluten intolerant. So drinking an ale doesn't tend to do me much good. Now, you might persuade me to have a non-alcoholic lager, but it's still got gluten in it, so I'm still going to regret it afterwards.
So probably maybe a fruit juice and a lemonade mixed together?
Yeah, it gets boring though, doesn't it? A ginger beer, maybe. I might have a ginger beer.
Or a Virgin Mary? I
don't know what a Virgin Mary is.
Tomato juice, Tabasco sauce, Worcester sauce, and a bit of salt and pepper. You don't like tomato juice?
I don't really like tomato juice or Tabasco sauce. No. It's going to be ginger beer or a Coke or something like that. Yeah.
And hello, good morning to Alex. And I hope you're generally well. as you can see, we're just chatting to Adam, and Alex says, I do like a nice ale. But Adam, have you ever been inside another male?
No, I haven't, no.
Okay. So I would like you to detail a little bit more about your last game.
About my last game that was published?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there were two that were published around the same time. Okay, so there's one that people might have actually heard of, maybe, possibly, which is Compromat, which is a two-player blackjack game, a bit like Shot and Totten or Battle Line. What that did for poker, splitting poker hands, splitting them. So that you're competing over central cards to score points. Compromat does that, but with blackjack and some brilliant graphic design from Felix Kendlan, who works for Helvetique. So Compromat, that was fairly popular, well, by comparison with my other games, a fairly popular game. So you may have actually heard of that one. You probably haven't heard of, but I really, really love Zooligans. So Zooligans doesn't qualify as a board game on Board Game Geek, so it doesn't get onto the Board Game Geek website, which I understand is a one-player puzzle, really. It's a deduction puzzle. But then it really upsets me when Macro Micro wins the Spiel des Jahres. It doesn't upset me because I really like Macro Micro, but then I think, oh, that gets all this buzz and coverage, and my game can't even get onto the Board Game Geek website. So, but yeah, that's just me having a little moment of bitterness and moaning. Zooligans is a deduction puzzle where you've got a bunch of animals. They're getting up to mischief in the zoo after closing time. And you've got to work out which animal did which thing at what time in which location. And it's the twist in it is that it's entirely picture-based. Every game that I've played like this, and I've played a lot of games like this, they've always got loads and loads of text in them describing what was happening, and you've got to take apart those clues. So this is entirely made up of pictures. So you have to deduce from those pictures what the
age range is it aimed at?
What age range? It is, well, it's billed as 8+. I think that's probably fair, but I also think it's perfectly playable by adults. The artwork is fairly childish, but it's really quite difficult by the time. There's 60 puzzles in there, and so it starts off super easy, but by the time you're up to the 40, 50, 60, it's taking a good period of time to work out those puzzles. Yeah, so I think the age range is quite wide, and it's also quite a fun game, a bit like Macro Micro. It's a really fun game to sit down and work on as a pair or a trio or a small group, rather than just playing it completely on your own.
And I think that there's so much really cool stuff in the puzzle space. After Aircon, which was the last convention in the UK, at least, before going into the pandemic, the pandemic was coming. I just realized, wow, this is a real thing, because, obviously, everyone was super careful with having hand sanitizer, with not shaking hands. We were touching elbows for the first time. We're getting used to all this. And then Festival in Denmark just got cancelled. And once that got cancelled, it made me realize, wow, it's really affecting things. This isn't just a hypothetical thing. It's actually going to affect us. And I think it was only during Aircon that I realized. Anyway, so I went to the shop. I spent, a few hours. I was chatting to the people, playing with their games, and then I bought a couple to play myself. And I thought, yeah, these will be fun little things that I play with over lockdown. I didn't spend as much time doing these solo things as I thought I would, but yes, absolutely. I think with all of them, the first 10 or 20, you can give to a small child and they'll have a lot of fun with it. But once you get to the last 10 or 20, even for an experienced adult, it's almost infuriating sometimes how difficult it is. But then, as somewhere in the middle is normally where I get to, and then at a certain point, I'm like, okay, I can't do that, but I might spend like a few minutes on like one puzzle every few days or something. It's a lovely thing to have this campaign. And it's a really interesting point that you make. That's essentially it's because of the uncertainty, the randomness, that a puzzle essentially like Pandemic is considered a board game, whereas a puzzle like I'm trying, something else is not considered that. Talking a quick hello to Ian VPT. Thank you for following along. Alex says, do you think there's a fair amount of luck to what gets picked up out of the general noise of new releases for awards, for sales?
I think it probably looks like that, but I think there is rhyme and reason to it. I mean, one thing that I've been trying to do with my YouTube channel recently, I spent a lot of time looking at games as products. So thinking about product design and trying to apply that to the board game space and trying to work out, when is a game, you might get a game that's really, really fun, really innovative in all sorts of ways, but is it a good product in market terms? And what does the market want? What do people want from it? And I think you can incorporate that into your design from really early stages. And actually, when you look at the industry like that, the games that are really successful, there's no big surprises there. When you look at them, it tends to be obvious why they were so successful. In general, I think. For example,
just with the benefits of hindsight, though.
There is probably a degree of that. There is probably a degree of that. Although I do think, you can also, I can look at a lot of games that I think are really, really good, and think, do you know what, this is not going to, I don't think it's going to make anyone any significant money, sell huge amounts of copies. It will be one of those games that will be forgotten in a year. And that's really sad that a lot of games go that way. I'm not a good enough designer to design the games that sell 1 million copies, or I haven't managed to come up with ideas like that yet. So I frequently come up with ideas that I know could probably sell a few thousand copies, but are they going to hit the big time? No, they're not. And I know that probably going in. I still continue to go and pitch them and try and be as enthusiastic as I can about them, because I love the games, and I like games that come out even if they do only sell a few thousand and find a small audience. That's absolutely fine. But the stuff that really stands ahead of the general noise, I think it usually there's a reason. When you look at it, usually you can pick it out. One of the reviews that I've got coming up in the next couple of weeks that I've already filmed and I've considered is Viticulture, which is behind me up here. So looking at Viticulture 10 years after its release and thinking, well, why is that number 25 on the Board Game Geek list, and why was that so successful that it launched Stonemaier Games and all the rest of it? And actually, when you start to look at the individual bits of it, there's a lot of really, really clever stuff going on there, not just in terms of the gameplay, in terms of the theme, the setting, the presentation, the marketing, and the little unique twists in it. And it's not the best game in the whole world by any stretch, but as a product, it's really, really clever.
I mean, Viticulture, obviously, it was Jamie Stegmaier's second Kickstarter, I believe. And
Viticulture was his first.
Well, Jamie Stegmaier had a Kickstarter before that.
Oh, did he? Okay.
It wasn't for a board game, but Jamie Stegmaier did use Kickstarter earlier than that. And also, Jamie Stegmaier had a background in marketing, which I think placed him really well to think about all of this. And I do think that in retrospect, obviously, it's having a wine game and then being able to tap into that market, but it is all about the marketing. And Alley Cat games like Cesar did a great job with Lab Wars. I mean, you play it, Cesar will admit it's not the best game, but there's a lot going on in terms of getting it out there. A quick good night to Cheap Sheep Games if you're still with us. Have a lovely bedtime and good night to you. Rory agrees, saying, I definitely agree with doing products first. Even if you aren't planning on selling your game, it can help with getting people interested in playtesting, for example. And Alex says, I wonder if it's worth playtesting game concepts. Give people a choice of which concepts they might like to try and see what sounds most compelling. I do a wee bit of that myself, sometimes bringing multiple games to game design, having multiple games out that have not actually published. And I kind of feel like, in a sense, my Bezzy bargain bags are a form of being able to do that, because I print 100 and I'm really fortunate that I was amazed that I sold out of 100 within a month, like after Dragon Meet. But, there's the next one is going to be a game about drawing creatures and complimenting the drawings and complimenting the compliments. And that's really out there. That's a bit weird, right? And I don't know if people will be up for that, but
those are the decisions that you make, aren't they? And I think you've got a really good eye for it, Bez. This is why I frequently talk in my videos about Yogi, for example, because I find that game and your input into it, your own thing, I find that inspiring, along with games like Happy Salmon and Dobble and things like this, which are so simple and such an extreme end of the market, but you spotted something that was obviously going to work and was obviously going to be really marketable. And of course, you've got to apply that to each individual sort of level. Something like viticulture is so much more complex in every way than Yogi. So it sits in a very different marketplace. But still, you've got to ask those questions. Do people actually need this product? Do they want this product?
At the same time, I think that there is value in doing things at a smaller scale. I mean, not everything has to be. Firstly, you can have the experiments of, like the compliments game. There's kind of two ways it could go, as I see it. Either it could be an incredibly niche thing, and then some people like it, but it goes nowhere, or it could be something where it starts getting used in educational settings, and people all over the world say, you know what, we really enjoy giving other people compliments. This is a lovely, charming game. It makes us smile, and this is like the new rage. I don't know. It could go either of those directions. But conversely, I've got another game which I was playtesting again on Sunday, a game about quickly grabbing creatures cards. I don't have a good name for it yet, or a good description, but you finish up with 7 cards. You might have a house, you might have a hermit. It's inspired by fantasy realms, and you've got a simultaneous real-time drafting system, which is kind of the twist. So I liked fantasy realms, but I didn't like the fact that it takes a little bit longer than what I felt it should take. And so in this game, it's got a real-time simultaneous drafting system. So you're kind of racing to grab the things, but there's a lot of text on, so you're actually having to do some incredible calculations for a typical real-time game. I think it's probably one of the more complex real-time games out there. I don't think this is ever going to be, there's no way this could be a mass market thing, but it still feels worth putting out into the world, even if I make 100 and then I struggle to get them all sold. I think I will still have enjoyed getting all those responses from the people who presumably enjoyed the game. Do you know what I mean?
I totally know what you mean, and I don't mean to say that it's not worthwhile doing things for the pleasure of it. I had a bit of a moan earlier on about my own Adam fails with Throne. Creating Throne, which I can't remember how many copies it sold, but I think it brought in me. I think I made about £600 from Throne, something like that, in terms of royalties. So it really wasn't any real success, but hugely pleasurable to make it. I still find it hugely pleasurable to have my game in a box that I can play, I can bring out and show to people. And there are people who occasionally play it and make nice comments on the internet. And there's huge value in making those games. But I do think it's sensible to be self-aware enough to know what you're making. Are you making something, with the intent of this being a huge success, or are you making something as a labor of love? And I think both are absolutely valid pastimes, valid pursuits. But one of them is going to potentially give you a career, and the other one is a nice pastime. Although that said, the experimental ones obviously do inform the other stuff too. It enhances the whole craft of game design, doesn't it? Which benefits all of us, but it benefits you as a designer as well. You get better.
And I think that's like each time that I get something not only good enough to pitch, but push it through to publication and see what's going on, that's really valuable. We've got a few questions from the audience that I'm going to quickly put forward. Firstly, what's the best way to find an NHS game designer, dentist, still taking on patients?
Sadly, there isn't an easy way to do that. Certainly in Wales, it's very, very difficult. In England, I don't know what the situation is, but I suspect it's probably even more difficult. And I don't know at all what the situation is like in Scotland or Northern Ireland. But no, it's incredibly tough because of the pandemic. In Wales, we're working at, 50% capacity because we've got so many restrictions on what we're able to do, which means that getting the people in pain sorted is difficult without getting into the checkups and everything else that people rely on. It's an incredibly sad picture in the NHS as a whole, and dentistry is one part of it. So yeah, it's really, really tough, and I can't give you any particular tips there. Sadly, it's something that government funding is the only way to fix.
Yeah, and hopefully we can avoid cutbacks. I do feel strongly that we should give more funding, but it does seem clear that you not only enjoy designing filler games. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. Absolutely. I don't really play them as fillers. I don't tend to sort of slip them in between bigger games or anything like that. It would often be the only thing I played. Well, let's have a quick game of this, and then we move on and we do other stuff, and we're not necessarily playing games. So I don't necessarily think of them as fillers. But yeah, no, I play an absolute ton of games that would potentially be called filler games. Yeah, I've got probably more of those. Well, certainly more of those than I've got of substantial strategy games in my collection.
I like to compare it to egg mayonnaise or tuna mayonnaise. I sometimes might make tuna mayonnaise, but I'm not going to use it as a sandwich filler. No, I'm just going to have the tuna mayonnaise on its own. That's the way that I like to eat sometimes. And that's kind of my approach to games. I would happily just sit down and play some quick things. Alex says the most playtesting a game will have is on the day of release. I guess doing a small print run is a good way to get some covert, unguided playtests. Yeah, that's a fair point.
I wonder how much playtesting games genuinely get. I see so frequently these posts. You must play your game thousands of times. This is the guidance given to designers. I just don't see how that's feasible as a if you're playtesting your game thousands of times, how are you ever going to make that time back in terms of any sort of profit or anything like that? So the answer obviously is to outsource it enormously and have huge teams of volunteers doing it, but then they're not getting paid for it either. So it seems like an unsustainable goal, really. So I think the truth is you playtest it enough, and that's a very difficult. Well, it's not. It's a feeling, isn't it? What is enough, really? But I'm sure it's true that things get playtested an awful lot after they're released than they do before they come out.
For sure, and that's part of why I'm very big on discerning methods that I know not everyone agrees with, where you do make a second edition that potentially some people might say, oh, this invalidates the first edition, you've made so many rule changes. Well, you've still got your first edition, you can still keep playing it. It's just that if you want to go to a tournament, you'll have to learn the rules to play with the second edition. But if you are 90% of people, it's still a really good game. I've got a question about your favorite game involving crowns, which wasn't that shown just a few moments ago? Something by you?
Throne. I don't think Throne's got any crowns in it, but it has got kings and things like that. Well, has it even got any kings? No, I don't know.
If it's got any more, works? Presumably it would have a picture of a crown.
Let's have a look at the box. Does it have a crown? I would be surprised if there was a crown in there. Don't know.
If not, how about Kakerlak and Poker Royale?
That is a good one. Kakerlak and Poker Royal. Well, Kakerlak and Poker is one of my favourite games, and Royal complicates it a little bit, but not enough to upset me like Kakerlak and Sushi does. So no, Kakerlak and Poker Royale can stay, and it does have crowns prominently in it, and it's really, really good. Kakerlak and Poker.
Yes, we'll rush through this because I know Adam does have to go in about 10 minutes. Ian asks for both of us, did we start the videos with the intention of marketing the brand as game designers? Do we feel it's been helpful to promote the brand? Do you still do it for the same reasons? I started off as something to do during lockdown. I started off playing games with people. It was games that I had designed for the L deck. So there was a bit of, yes, I get to keep playtesting and keep making stuff. And we were also playing stuff like Say Anything and Wits and Wagers that kind of worked online with a few small rules modifications. But then when I started Busy Beats and Board Game Bladder, it was mainly as a way to get me up in the morning and as a thing to do. And as time's gone on, obviously, I'm aware I've used it sometimes to promote Kickstarters that I'm running or whatever. But for me, the primary purpose and the thing that has to be, I don't think of it as a marketing time. I think of it as time that benefits me, connects me with people, allows me to have a regular reason to get up, and potentially offers me time and space to think and be informed about stuff. How about you, Adam? I know you started with reviews.
Yeah, I've been questioning for the last 10 years why I started the YouTube channel. I don't know what the reason I do it is. I started in 2012, before I was designing games, just reviewing games. I don't know why. I think I was stopping acting around that time. That was around the time I stopped acting. And I think I just liked the idea of being on camera and talking, even though I wasn't very charismatic. Maybe I'm still not, but I was certainly worse in 2012 than I am now. And so I started reviewing games. Until about 6 months ago, I never asked for review copies. I didn't turn on adverts or anything like that. So I never had any intent of getting free games or getting money, although I do now look for review copies because I find, well, I find it enjoyable analyzing games that I've not really picked out for myself and things like that. So that's changed slightly. In terms of the brand, there were points when I first started designing games that I thought, oh, I've got this YouTube channel and I've got some subscribers. Maybe this will help to promote my games. Did it make any difference? I mean, yeah, like a tiny bit, but I've got something like nearly 4,000 subscribers. I think the people who watch my videos, the majority of my videos have 300, 400, 500 views, something like that. But my games will sell between 1,000 and 20,000 copies or something like that. It's the number of my viewers who are buying my games. I think that's probably pretty small. So I don't think it doesn't have enough of an impact to be worth doing. What you need for your games to work is to have a really, really good game.
Itself.
Pardon? Sorry, Bez.
Because you enjoy the process itself, but your videos are completely different to mine. They're short, they're actually edited. I was going to say well edited, but they're actually edited, and they are well edited. And there's B-roll footage going on with the voice. It looks great, but is that the reason you do it? Because of the process?
Yeah, I do enjoy the process. I do enjoy the process of making them. I think I wouldn't do it if I didn't. I treat it a little bit like it's a bit like playing a video game. I don't play many video games, but I do like, if I've got more views on this video than on another video, let's see if I can beat that next time. And that sort of thing. I like that challenge of subscribers going up and just numbers, seeing the numbers increasing. It feels like points, so I enjoy it from that angle. one of the big things that I've discovered, and this wasn't the intent in it, but one of the major things that it does is it inspires me in making games. So, for example, recently I made a video about the top 10 mechanisms used in flicking games, which meant I went through all the flicking games in my collection and others that I knew of, and I really tried to piece together what are the common elements in them. And that, by doing that, this has happened numerous times with different mechanisms. I start to notice gaps. I start to notice things that people haven't done or other ways it could work. And it inspires me to then design a game that fills that. So recently I've designed a flicking game immediately just because I made that video. That's what spurred me on to do it. So it is beneficial to my game design for sure.
Alex says, I think your videos are great, but maybe the type of players you make games for aren't usually the type of person who engages with those types of board game videos.
Yeah.
It's and yeah, I think it's the same kind of research that you should do before any big project, and I think it's incredibly generous of you to then go off and share that with us. So as designers, we can see all the gaps as well, without doing quite as much work. But I do understand myself when I've decided to do more of a lecture style video, there is a bit of coalescing of thoughts, and I learn myself. I want to quickly, before you go, could you show the back of your hand?
Back of my hand, yep.
I just want to confirm you do have nails. And finally,
do people understand this? I mean, do people know that I'm called Adam in Wales on my channel? This is the problem with this. We haven't actually mentioned Adam in Wales, have we? Which is the name of my YouTube channel.
It's been going at the bottom.
Okay, all right. So people do know what this is all about. Okay,
so finally,
Adam in Wales.
Can you talk about, if you can, the game that you are currently working on, or a game that you are excited to pitch to someone?
Do you know, I don't tend to give too much detail away.
Sorry, Alex asks, are you even in Wales? That would be as
No, I am in Wales.
Sorry, you don't want to give too much away. Your games are simple. And
exactly that. I'm fully on board with it. I love when designers are very free with giving away their ideas and talking about them openly and not worrying about people stealing them and all those sort of things. I encourage people to do the same. But when you work on such slight games, I tend to think, oh, I've got a really good concept there, and it's one thing. And if I say it out loud, somebody else can work on it. So that's why I don't tend to talk about the games that I'm designing outside of playtesting groups. But yeah, I'm probably being overly secretive. But I've been working on a flicking game, and I've been working on a card drafting game. Those are both kind of ready to start pitching, but I'll probably say
drafting real time, or is there any dexterity there?
Oh, I might use drafting real time now, Bez. Now you've mentioned it out loud. No, I won't. No, it's not. It's a very simple drafting system, turn-based drafting system. It's just got a nice theme, that one. There's nothing particularly innovative about the gameplay, but it's got a really lovely little theme incorporated into it. I've got a big Euro game, which I've been working on for years, that hopefully Essen I might start pitching if I can get to Essen this year. It was pitched a few years ago and got quite a lot of good feedback, but it needed a lot of revisions. So yeah, a few things going on.
That sounds fantastic. And if any designer out there wants a new idea for a mechanism, Alex suggests flick drafting. That's a great idea. Like, instead of going on, where it's tossing things into the cups as an auction, here maybe you flick them, and then whichever thing you land on, you get to draft that. I don't know. That could be quite fun.
It sounds like Mondrian the dice game.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yeah, I remember that.
Mondrian the dice game, where you're flicking dice and you're landing them on little cards, and then you're trying to have the higher dice numbers on the individual cards to claim them. That's a good idea.
I wanted to say it has been lovely having you. I understand that you have to head off. So if you want to skedaddle at this point, I'll take a couple of minutes to wrap up. Of course, before you do so, if people are, I'll start off the banner again. So at the start, it's got adamportergames.com and youtube.com/adamsboardsgamewales. if people would like to find you, is there anywhere else that you would like to be found? Is there anything else that you would like people to keep paying attention to?
No, not really. No, YouTube is pretty much it. I mean, I am on Twitter at BoardGameWales. I do post on there just mainly links to my videos, so people can certainly contact me at BoardGameWales on Twitter. I tried to do a little bit of Instagram recently, but I got quite tired of how much work it took. So you'll probably find me on Instagram, and certainly I'll respond if you message me or anything like that. But no, really, I'm on YouTube. That's where you find me, to be honest.
It has been such a delight, and we're having you back on in 3 weeks, and that, as opposed to this, which was just a general mishmash of getting to know a wee bit about Adam, meeting, and that one's going to be, we'll think of some topic in the interim, but it'll be probably a wee bit more focused on one aspect of game design and going a little bit more in depth. But
okay, great.
For now, it's been lovely, and I will let you crack on because I know you've got work to do.
Yeah, thank you very much. Lovely to see you, Bez, and thanks to everybody for commenting. And yeah, I'll see you again soon. Bye.
Bye. And for everyone who's still around, I'm going to ask over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So is there anything that you're doing today? Is there anything that you want to play? Is there anything that you need? Anything that you hate, from which you think you should be freed? Maybe you're going outside for a walk, or maybe you're dreading something and it almost makes you balk. So yeah, feel free to share. I promise that I care. Personally, Monday is my day off generally. I am going to spend today having a relatively lazy day. I've got bits of a few chores to do. I'm going to do a bit of drawing, make a new game. It might be something involving beetroots or radishes, or it might be a new prototype of a game about discussing which objects best match certain criteria. And yeah, yesterday, my day off, I've got a good long list, so I put it up on Twitter so I would remember. Alex says, the kids are home from school, so we're about to make a goblin-themed animation. That sounds amazing. I hope you have a great time. And feel free to share anything. And I will, of course, recap and wrap up before I finish up. So we saw Adam. What a lovely person Adam is. Making fantastic videos, sharing them, making some great games. Doodle Rush is a personal favorite of mine. I just enjoy the real-time nature mixed with the drawing, but then you're doing everything at once, super frantically. I think it is like at 3 players, maybe 4 players, it really shines. Doodle Rush, I do recommend it for sure. But yeah, to recap, I had Adam in Wales come over. We talked about when you're pitching a game, make sure that you're not just selling the game, but talking about yourself and kind of developing that relationship. Adam has done a wee bit of music, but not much. And we talked about in games sometimes not thinking enough about the end user, not being targeted enough, casting too wide a net. That can be a problem. Talks about The Tempest, a play by Shakespeare. I've not seen it. Maybe you have, but I am inspired to. Adam has been on a cruise. Adam's managed to have some triumphs with the amount of stuff going on in dentistry and managing to make board games and having the comments on the videos and hearing people enjoy the games. There is a lovely garden which the young dog wrecks all the time, and there's never been a brushing in the law. Adam does go hiking around Wales, but does not drink ales. Maybe buys Adam something non-alcoholic, but Adam does not like tomato juice or Tabasco, so probably not a Virgin Mary. Adam is heterosexual, and Adam talked a little bit more about the trick taking with dice, which is a really interesting twist. Does have nails, of course. Doesn't like to talk too much about the future games, because at the level of simplicity, I do firmly believe that if I told the Board Game Geek description of In a Bind / Yogi to anyone, I do believe that anyone could have made a game that was at least 95% as good as it. And so there was and Adam had to leave at 11 sharp, which is why Adam's not here. But it has been a delight. Thank you all for sticking around. And yes, there are many more rhymes that we could have done. And I did have them lined up, but we didn't manage to get to it. So for now, that is the end of the show. If you want to check me out, I am Stuff by Bez everywhere. Twitter.com/StuffByBez, Instagram.com/StuffByBez, Twitch.tv/StuffByBez is where you're probably watching this, and you can watch older episodes on YouTube, or go to my Discord, where if you go stuffbybez.com/Discord, it will redirect you. And of course, stuffbybez.com/streams will tell you about my future streams. I don't have a topic for tomorrow. If you want to suggest a future topic, then feel free to do so. Otherwise, it'll just be whatever's on my mind, board game wise. Or I might occasionally, once every week or two, do something just about one of my games. Share, spread the word. Thursday, I'm having Dina, and we're going to be planning our 2022 together. Also, go to my Discord and join in the prediction game. Please do check out my Discord, because there's 2 new channels. There's a game, and I'm hoping that someone will agree to play it with me. You basically need to either write down predictions, or you thumbs up or thumbs down the predictions to say whether you agree or not. And at the end of the year, well, I've got the scoring system, so we'll work out who was the master predictor. Thank you, everyone, once more. It has been a delight to have you all. It's been a delight to chat. I hope you have a wonderful day ahead, night, whatever it is. And for now, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye-bye, Alex. Bye-bye, Nicholas. Bye-bye, everyone else who's still around, and lots of love. And bye-bye to anyone who's watching after the fact. As always, if you have any questions, leave them below and I will answer. But lots of love. Bye-bye.